Right now, as you listen to these words, your mind might already be somewhere else entirely. It could be replaying a conversation from yesterday, rehearsing what you'll say tomorrow, or spinning through a dozen scenarios that haven't even happened yet. This is the nature of worry, and it reveals something profound that ancient teachers understood thousands of years ago. Worry is not about what's actually happening. It's about what the mind believes might happen. Think about the last time you truly worried about something. Notice how the worry began long before any real event took place. Your mind took a single thought, a possibility, maybe just a fleeting concern, and transformed it into an entire narrative. You felt your chest tighten, your breathing change, your entire nervous system responding as if the imagined threat was standing right in front of you. But nothing had actually occurred. The mind had simply convinced your body that a story was reality. Ancient traditions across the world discovered this same truth through different paths. The Stoics of ancient Greece and Rome observed how suffering comes not from events themselves, but from our judgments about those events. Early Buddhist teachings pointed to the mind's tendency to create elaborate constructions around simple moments. Taoist philosophers spoke of how the mind disturbs the natural flow of life by grasping at outcomes that don't yet exist. Despite their different languages and cultures, they all arrived at the same insight. Worry is a mental habit, not a reflection of actual danger. These teachers understood something we often forget today. Worry feels productive because it creates the illusion that we're doing something about a problem. The mind believes that by thinking through every possible outcome, by rehearsing every potential disaster, by mentally preparing for every conceivable scenario, it's somehow protecting us. But this is where the mind tricks itself. All that mental activity doesn't change what will actually happen. It only changes how we experience this moment right now. Consider how worry actually operates in your daily life. You send a message to someone important, and they don't respond immediately. Within minutes, your mind begins constructing explanations. Maybe they're angry. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe this means something terrible about your relationship. The mind fills in the silence with stories, each one more elaborate than the last. Your body responds to these imagined scenarios with real stress hormones, real tension, real discomfort. Yet the only actual fact is this: someone hasn't responded to a message yet. This is the loop that exhausts so many people. The mind takes a neutral situation and adds layers of meaning, interpretation, and prediction. It creates entire dramas around events that exist only in imagination. Meanwhile, your nervous system treats these mental creations as if they were immediate threats, keeping you in a constant state of alertness for dangers that aren't actually present. The ancient trick that cuts through this cycle is surprisingly simple, yet it changes everything once you understand it. Instead of trying to force the mind to stop worrying, which never works and often makes the worry stronger, the trick is to recognize the difference between what's actually happening and what the mind is imagining might happen. When worry appears, there's a moment of choice that most people miss entirely. The mind presents its story about the future, complete with vivid details and emotional intensity. But right before you get pulled into that narrative, there's a space where you can pause and ask a simple question. Is this happening right now? Or is this my mind creating a prediction? This question creates a shift that ancient teachers called by many names. Some called it returning to the present moment. Others described it as seeing clearly. Still others spoke of it as letting go of mental formations. The words differ, but they all point to the same experience: the recognition that worry lives in imagination, while life lives in reality. When you make this distinction, something remarkable happens. The pressure that worry creates begins to dissolve. Not because you've solved the problem your mind was worried about, but because you've recognized that the problem existed primarily in thought, not in the actual circumstances of your life. Your body responds immediately to this shift. the tightness in your chest begins to ease. Your breathing deepens naturally. The sense of urgency that worry creates starts to fade. This happens because your nervous system recognizes that the danger it was preparing for isn't actually present. The threat was in the story, not in reality. This doesn't mean becoming passive or ignoring real challenges when they arise. Ancient wisdom never taught people to become disconnected from life or to avoid taking appropriate action. Instead, it taught them to respond from clarity rather than react from fear. When you're not caught up in worried predictions about the future, you can see present circumstances more clearly and respond more effectively. The mind creates worry because it's trying to control uncertainty, but uncertainty is woven into the fabric of existence itself. Ancient teachers understood that fighting against uncertainty is like trying to stop the ocean from having waves. The effort creates more turbulence, not more peace. When you stop trying to mentally control outcomes and return your attention to what's actually here, the mind naturally begins to settle. This ancient trick works because it aligns you with how life actually unfolds, one moment at a time, in the present, not in the elaborate futures your mind constructs. When awareness returns to reality instead of imagination, worry loses the fuel that keeps it burning. In that space of clarity, you discover something that worry had been covering up, a sense of groundedness and calm that was there all along, waiting beneath the mental noise. Noise, the secret that ancient teachers discovered about worry, was hidden in plain sight. Worry isn't actually about protecting you from danger. It's about the mind's addiction to creating problems that don't exist yet. When you truly observe how worry operates, you'll notice it always begins the same way. A thought appears, completely ordinary, maybe even reasonable. Then something shifts. The mind grabs hold of that thought and begins spinning it into elaborate stories about what could go wrong, what might happen, what you should prepare for. This is where the ancient understanding becomes powerful. Those early teachers realized that worry is the mind confusing imagination with reality. Your nervous system doesn't distinguish between an actual threat standing in front of you and a vivid mental image of a threat that might appear someday. Both trigger the same physical response: increased heart rate, shallow breathing, muscle tension, the flood of stress hormones preparing you to fight or flee. But one is responding to reality, while the other is responding to a story. Ancient wisdom traditions understood this distinction because they spent centuries observing how the mind works. They noticed that most human suffering comes not from what's actually happening, but from the mental commentary about what's happening. The Stoics observed how two people could face identical circumstances, yet have completely different experiences based on their internal narratives. Buddhist teachings pointed to how the mind creates elaborate constructions around simple moments, turning neutral events into sources of anxiety or distress. What these traditions discovered was that worry operates through a specific mechanism. The mind takes incomplete information and fills in the gaps with assumptions, usually negative ones. Someone doesn't call you back when they said they would. The mind immediately begins constructing explanations. They're avoiding you, they're angry, something terrible has happened. This means your relationship is in trouble. Within minutes, you're experiencing genuine distress about situations that exist only in imagination. This is the exhausting loop that keeps so many people trapped. The mind presents these imagined scenarios with such vivid detail and emotional intensity that they feel completely real. Your body responds accordingly, creating real physical discomfort from imaginary threats. Meanwhile, the actual situation remains unchanged. Someone simply hasn't called yet. The ancient trick that breaks this cycle doesn't involve forcing yourself to think positively or trying to suppress worried thoughts. Those approaches usually backfire because they create resistance, and whatever you resist tends to persist. Instead, the trick involves a subtle shift in awareness that changes everything. When a worried thought appears, instead of automatically following it into the elaborate story it wants to tell, You pause and make a simple distinction. You ask yourself, is this actually happening right now, in this moment? Or is this my mind creating a prediction about what might happen later? This question creates a gap between you and the worried thought. In that gap, you can see the thought for what it actually is: a mental creation, not a reflection of present reality. The moment you recognize this, something shifts. The urgency that worry creates begins to dissolve. The physical tension starts to ease. The sense of impending doom fades because you've recognized that the doom existed in imagination, not in your actual circumstances. This doesn't mean ignoring genuine challenges when they arise or becoming disconnected from appropriate concern about real situations. Ancient wisdom never taught people to become passive or indifferent. Instead, it taught them to respond from clarity rather than react from fear-based imagination. Think about how different your experience becomes when you're responding to what's actually happening versus reacting to what your mind thinks might happen. When you're dealing with present reality, you can see the situation clearly, assess what action might be helpful, and respond appropriately. When you're caught in worried predictions about the future, your perception becomes clouded by anxiety, making it much harder to see clearly or act effectively. The body provides immediate feedback about this shift. Worry creates physical symptoms because your nervous system believes it needs to prepare for danger. Your chest tightens, your breathing becomes shallow, your muscles tense up, ready for action. But when you recognize that the danger exists only in thought, not in present reality, your body naturally begins to relax. The threat response subsides because there's no actual threat to respond to. Ancient teachers understood that worry is fundamentally about the mind's attempt to control uncertainty. The mind believes that by thinking through every possible scenario, by mentally rehearsing every potential problem, by staying constantly vigilant about what might go wrong, it can somehow prevent bad things from happening, or at least be prepared for them. But this mental preparation rarely helps when actual challenges arise, and it definitely creates suffering in the present moment. Uncertainty is woven into the nature of existence itself. Ancient wisdom recognized that fighting against uncertainty is like trying to stop water from being wet. The effort creates more turbulence, not more stability. When you stop trying to mentally control outcomes that haven't happened yet and return your attention to what's actually present, the mind naturally settles into a calmer state. This ancient trick works because it aligns you with reality instead of fighting against it. Life unfolds moment by moment, not in the elaborate future scenarios your mind constructs. When you bring awareness back to what's actually here now, rather than what might be there later, worry loses the fuel it needs to keep burning. The shift happens gradually at first, then more readily with practice. You begin to notice the moment when your mind starts spinning worried stories. Instead of automatically following those stories, you gently return attention to present reality. What's actually happening right now? What can you actually perceive through your senses in this moment? The worried predictions about tomorrow fade into the background as your awareness settles into the clarity of now. This isn't about forcing a positive mindset or pretending problems don't exist. It's about recognizing the difference between responding to actual circumstances and reacting to imagined ones. In that recognition, you discover something remarkable. Beneath all the mental noise and worried predictions, there's a natural sense of calm and groundedness that was always there, waiting to be noticed. And groundedness that was always there, waiting to be noticed. The ancient trick that countless generations discovered is both incredibly simple and profoundly transformative. It comes down to this: when worry appears, pause and recognize whether you're responding to reality or reacting to imagination. That single moment of awareness changes everything. This isn't about perfection or never having another worried thought. The mind will continue creating stories, spinning predictions, filling in blanks with assumptions. That's simply what minds do. But now you have a choice. Instead of automatically following every worried narrative, you can gently return to what's actually present. In that return, you discover the peace that worry had been covering up. The next time your mind begins constructing elaborate scenarios about what might go wrong, remember this ancient wisdom. Ask yourself that simple question: is this happening now, or is this imagination? Feel how that question creates space. Notice how the urgency begins to fade when you recognize the difference between present reality and future fantasy. Thousands of years of human wisdom have pointed to this same truth. Awareness over imagination, presence over prediction, clarity over fear. The trick isn't complicated, but it's life-changing. Try it the next time worry tries to pull you into its loop. You might be surprised by the calm that emerges when you stop fighting imaginary battles and simply return to the reality of this moment.